So we've got some answers there. It started from Rotorua.
Yeah, or is it that she travelled to Rotorua and they're now trying to say if you've been in Rotorua and you get a cold, start worrying about it. But we'd like the problems of New Zealand, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
4 cases and they shut the whole city down.
Yeah.
I think what it demonstrates, Peter, is that you can't really go for elimination. Certainly people in the federal government say to me the virus is out there, even when we have 0 cases officially of community transmission. It's out there somewhere, and I think this is another example of it. They've got no proof of these people being near the hotel quarantine, anyone who worked at the hotel quarantine or having been overseas. In fact, I think last night they said they hadn't even been overseas ever, these people, and they still got the virus. Well,
I mean, I guess the point is now that perhaps it's asymptomatic people. And it can be passed from one asymptomatic person to another asymptomatic person, and on it goes until someone starts showing signs.
It'd be funny if it was a false positive, wouldn't it? But
well, I mean, I did wonder that.
You did say that to me just before, but with 4 cases in a family, I think that's impossible. We have certainly had some instances in Australia, though, of false positives, no doubt about it.
Let's get on to this story out of Melbourne. I'm quite fascinated with this one. It's this stoush that's taking place between the Premier of Victoria, another one, and the federal government. Just when the Prime Minister, well, he had been calling for calm anyway. That's kind of shifted a little bit in recent days. Daniel Andrews says he didn't get help. And the federal government said it did offer help. And then he says it wasn't offered, but it was clearly offered. I hope you're all following me here. It's hard to argue against Linda Reynolds here.
Yeah, look, the federal government offered the Victorian government, Australian Defence Force,
several times
with hotel quarantining. Now, I saw something in the papers that it was being briefed out of Victoria that it was at the agency level. Does that not count? Yeah. Of course it counts. He's really been misleading there. Yeah. Let's face it, I'm not prepared to say he lied, but he's being misleading. And if he doesn't know what his agencies are up to, well then, that's a competence question. But I just think that was a real slip-up by Dan Andrews. And look, the biggest problem here was the lack of police, not ADF, don't get me wrong. But then maybe there was a thought in the Victorian government, without police there, with ADF having no arresting powers and that sort of thing, we can't have the ADF. There's no doubt, in my view, from everything I've heard, and Linda Reynolds sticking her neck out there, that the ADF assistance was offered. Indeed, it was used with hotel quarantine in New South Wales.
The Prime Minister even did a press conference back in March, right, though, and he's clearly said that ADF personnel will be offered. So for the Premier not to even see that or not think that there was help there, particularly when it was provided to Queensland and it was provided in New South Wales, stands to reason that it would be provided to Victoria.
Andrews' argument yesterday was that the ADF were used at the airport and for transporting, not for guarding the hotel quarantine. That's not correct.
Yeah.
In the other states, they were also used for hotel quarantine, that personnel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to excuse the Premier for that.
Yeah, well, he's given his opposition a real free hit on that this morning. I just want to ask you, I'm curious about the election that's taking place in the Northern Territory. You pointed this out with Kieran yesterday, this new campaign ad where Michael Gunner has basically used all of the opposition's claims against them because they want the borders open. He wants them closed, and that's going to be something that Queenslanders are going to use as well.
Absolutely going to be used.
An easy one, do you reckon?
So Queensland Labor are watching the Northern Territory Labor campaign with some admiration, and they plan to use the same tactics against Deb Frecklington, and they believe that will be a winner.
So they are going.
Yeah, and then we've got a WA election after that. So you'll see election after election where the Premier will say, who do you trust to keep you safe, or the Chief Minister? And we kept the borders shut when the opposition was saying they should be open. It'll be the same playbook every time.
So easy.
Well, I think it really favours the incumbent. I think the oppositions are going to have to do a lot of work to win. And Deb Frecklington's pretty unlucky. The economy was hurting. She would have been able to maintain that argument without the Victorian outbreak. But once that happened, Anastasia Palaszczuk was completely justified. Despite that, Peter, the poll's still very, very close in Queensland.
Yeah. Well, Frecklington's even ahead by a couple of points, right?
Well, or half a point or 1 point, depending which poll you look at.
But Anna Bligh was ahead.
Can't trust polls.
Anna Bligh was ahead after a natural disaster in Queensland and then lost.
Well, 2 things. We can't really trust polls, we know that, particularly when they're close. And in the last week of a campaign when they're close, often it goes the way of the incumbent. Yeah. And if they campaign, and that's a poll before you campaign hard on what Flecklington said on the borders. So I still think Palaszczuk's in the box seat.
Yeah, I would have thought so too.